This is King World News. I'm Eric King, and you're about to hear a very interesting interview with Don Saltarelli, the man former California Governor Pete Wilson called in to fix what had become a bankrupt Orange County. Don discusses California's financial crisis and gives the current governor some advice. Remember to go to our homepage at www.kingworldnews.com for more interviews. With this week, we have a powerful interview with John Williams from shadowstats.com, as well as an excellent gold interview with John Embry, Chief Investment Strategist at Sprott Asset Management. Joining us now is Don Saltarelli, who was called in California by Governor Pete Wilson in 1995 to fix Orange County, which had just declared bankruptcy. Don, people are looking at California and cannot believe how they have run that state into the ground financially. Can you talk about how bad things are with regards to California's budget problems?
Well, I think when you talk about California, it's very much like Orange County was back in 1995. They're completely and without question, bankrupt. That's all there is to say. They are bankrupt. They have no way to get out of this mess except to declare bankruptcy. And I am told that there is a way that they can do that. I'm told that under a Chapter 9 proceedings that the state or municipality can declare bankruptcy. I heard today that Harrisburg, Pennsylvania was thinking of declaring bankruptcy. Already another city in California, in the Southern California, down near San Diego, has declared bankruptcy. So it's not an unusual proceeding, and it's probably the only one that will save the state. There is no reason to believe that the legislature, which is a really far left-wing bunch of legislators, will do anything but spend more money than the state takes in for as long as they are there. And so I would advise the governor to meet with his cabinet, members of the legislature, and attorneys, and see whether or not they can declare bankruptcy for the state.
Let me ask you, Don, what is the budget deficit in California? Do you know that number?
Well, I think last year it was in the vicinity of $20 billion, and as soon as they fixed that problem, which was to give some people a day off a month or 2 days a month off without pay, trying to sell the Coliseum and the state fairgrounds and some things like that, and passing some bond issues and so forth, they started the next budget period. And all of a sudden, they were immediately $21 billion in the hole again.
What is the total cumulative debt looking like?
My understanding is it's around $540 billion in total debt in California general obligation bonds, as well as bonds from municipalities, special districts, and so forth.
When you look at what is happening in California, Don, with regards to the businesses, I know that businesses are being chased out. Taxpayers are being chased out. They're the highest taxing state in the United States, but they raised it from 9.5% to 10.55%. So that makes people leave the state, and then they're chasing businesses out. You're going to be left with a state that just has a nanny state and no one to provide the taxation. Is that where you're headed over there?
Yes, that's very definitely where we're headed. It's an anti-business state. They continue to pass more and more stringent regulations for environmental controls. The state income tax is near 11% now. So businesses are saying, I cannot afford this. They're closing their doors, moving out of state to where they can make a profit, and therefore you have more and more unemployed. Believe it or not, California has 37 million residents now. New York, for instance, is considered a true welfare state. California has 5 times as many people on welfare as New York does. 5 times.
Talk to listeners a minute about how you were called into Orange County and what happened and how you solved those problems, Don.
Well, it turns out that the Orange County treasurer was taking money in an investment pool from all of the cities and special districts in Orange County and was investing heavily in derivatives that were interest rate sensitive, and the market went against him. In spite of all the advice that he had, the advice was that if he could ride out the storm, he would eventually make big money, which turned out actually to be true. Had Orange County held the investments for another 3 or 4 years, instead of losing $1.6 billion, they would have made $3.5 billion. But too late to rehash that problem. After the bankruptcy occurred, I was selected because I had some experience as the mayor of a small town in running a city efficiently with low taxes and being very business-friendly, and had some expertise in municipal finance. And so when I went to the county of Orange, in a year and a half, we reduced the employees number from approximately 19,500 to 14,500, consolidated departments, sold capacity in our trash dumps to outside counties that didn't have enough capacity, which enabled us to have an income stream to float enough bonds to pay off the debt that we had incurred in the bankruptcy. And so we became viable again, and Orange County grew, and it was strong, and real estate values went up, and tax revenues soared, and what happened is the same typical thing that happens in the federal government and in the state government that happened in the Orange County government, and once again, we're close to 20,000 employees, and in my own opinion, I would think that we're going to have to do something very serious to save Orange County again.
So with regards to the state of California, if you were called in by Governor Schwarzenegger to fix the problems, you would say go through the bankruptcy and then have an administrator basically come in and say, regardless of what your politics are, here's your budget that you're going to have for spending on education, for spending on all of these various areas, and just take the politics right out of it. Is that your thoughts on that?
Yes, that's correct. I think it has to be taken out of the hands of politicians who can't be trusted to do the right thing. The reason is that because we have such very powerful public employee unions in the state of California who spend hundreds of millions of dollars electing members of the Assembly and Senate and so forth, they are basically required to vote for higher pay and higher benefits and so forth. Not only is the problem that we have one of a yearly bankruptcy or a yearly budget deficit, but we have long-term unfunded liability of trillions of dollars for pensions and so forth. That has to be changed. And the only way to change this, I think, is through the bankruptcy courts, where you're able to get rid of the contracts that the labor unions have with the state, the school systems have with the state. I believe the state has in the Constitution now that 40% of all the revenues to the state go to schools. And I don't really think the taxpayers at the moment care whether the class size is 24 or 26 or 27. They don't want to pay more taxes. They don't have the money. Something like 20% of the houses, not only in this state but in the whole United States, is underwater. In other words, the mortgage is larger than the value of the home. And so we may even have a further drop in real estate prices out here, and people not being able to pay their taxes becomes a further strain on state and local budgets.
When I look into California, Don, you have 22, 23, 24% unemployment there, and yet the home prices somehow have not reverted to the mean at all. I mean, it's not reflective of annual incomes and really a proper format on a historical basis. Why haven't the real estate prices, they've come down, but they really haven't come down to where they should?
Well, that can probably be said is true in most parts of the nation. Some places, though, are fairly strong. California has pockets where there have been very distressed houses further away from the employment centers, which are now actually very cheap. And in areas like Newport Beach and San Diego and some of the